comes from a clearly Israeli family, like you.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm the father of the bride. And the father-in-law of the Hatan. I was asked to say something about the parasha. And in the end of this week's parasha, it has the verse that I love most in the whole Torah, and I bet that you guys do not yet. And what I want to do right now is this is going to be Geula's favorite verse after I'm finished talking. And that's going to be a hard thing because she's got lots of them that she loves the best. But let me show you why this one is the best. Okay? So, does everybody know the story of Lech Lecha? So Lech Lecha starts in Parshat Noach. Who takes whom to Eretz Israel? Who takes whom? Anybody know? Mark, you know. Who takes whom? Terach. Oh my gosh, who said that? Somebody stole my notes, and it was him. He got it. It was Terach who took. It says in the parasha that Terach took Abraham and Sarah and Lot. Okay? So Hashem tells Abraham to take these people, and Terach takes them. What's happening? I'm talking to Mark here. I'm not talking to anybody else. So it says, now listen to this. Vaikach Terach et Avram beno. Okay? So it says that Avram is his son. We know this from the previous 3 verses. We know all of the information I'm about to tell you. We know it all from the previous 3 verses. Nothing is new at all. It's completely and utterly redundant. Avram is his son. Yes, we know this. Okay? Ve'et Lot ben Haran ben Beno. So Lot is the son of Haran, the son of his son, which we know from the previous 3 verses. It wasn't like 15 verses ago. We know it from right here. Okay? Ve'et, he also takes Sarai Kalato. The Kala he takes. And we know this already from the previous 3 verses. Okay? Eshet Avram Beno. So we know this already. Okay? So why? And Vayitzu itam me'or kastim, they go from Or Kastim. Lalechet al Canaan, they go towards Eretz Canaan. Okay? Vayavo ad Haran. Vayishu sham. So we know all of this information before, so why does it tell us all of this information? I want you to flip the script. What's the one thing that we know about Terach? What's the one thing we know about Terach? You saw my notes, so still.
I didn't see all of that.
Okay, well, you stole it, but then you didn't read the whole thing. So what do we know about Terach?
He's Avram's father.
Terach is Haran's father. And what happened to Haran? He died in front of Terach. And Terach's whole life, if we could go into Terach's head, okay, was Terach a good guy or a bad guy?
Bad.
He was the worst guy there is. He was an idol worshiper. He was the maker of. He was part of the patriarchy and the whole oppressive system that there was. But according to the Torah, Terach had feelings. Terach had something that was going through his mind at all times. He saw his son die, and that was it. That was every thought that he ever had since that time. He couldn't go to Gavna without saying, that's the place that my son went. That's the place that my friend of my sister, of my son went. Everything was because of his son. I want you to listen to this verse with the sensitivity that the Torah has for the worst person possible. The worst person possible. The sensitivity to what's his feelings, what's in his heart, what's in his mind, what's going through his head. Listen to the verse again through the eyes of he lost his son. This was pain that he carried throughout his whole life. Listen. Vaikach Terach et Avram beno ve'et Lot ben Haran ben beno, the son of his son, if you're an English speaker. Ve'et Sarai Kalato, Sarah, his daughter-in-law. Eshet Avram beno. Terach's whole life was his son. He lost his son. And the thought that cycled through his head at every moment was my son, my son, my son. There are people who lose their son or something happens to their child, and that's their whole life. Everything after that, that's what goes through their head. And since I read this verse, I've wondered, what goes through people's heads? And the Torah tells us at every moment, every verse, what's going through everybody's head. Read the Torah again, read every single verse, and you can see what's going through not just Terach, but through Moshe's head, through Yaakov's head, through Yitzhak. Yitzhak gives a bracha to the wrong person. What's he thinking? It says it. It says it. It says it in the verses. Everybody, it says what they're thinking. Thousands of years before this way of talking in literature. It's called third-person subjective. Okay, where we can hear what's going on through people's heads. It was invented in the Torah thousands of years earlier. Please read the Torah again, and you can hear what's going through everybody's head. The people in this world who I wonder what's going through their head are my daughter and my son-in-law. You don't have to wonder. You saw it on display. You can see what's going on through their heads. For the last 8 months, you can just see it. There's a billboard of everything that's going through their head. It is the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. I just want to tell you one thing about my daughter. She grew up right here. She grew up, I wore her in this thing called a baby Bjorn. When I first had kids, I read a book by Dr. William and Martha Sears. How do you have a baby? What do you do? How do you raise kids? And it said what you have to do is you have to have this thing called attachment parenting. You have to have them close to you. And you wear this thing called a baby Bjorn, and you put them close to you, and that's the secret. And that's what I did with my daughter. She literally grew up right here, okay? Right here, to the extent that I wanted her to get comfortable in the water. So I would take her in the baby Bjorn when she was about to go to sleep, in like the water, in the pool. She would fall asleep in the pool. That's where she grew up. And she would just look at me, and I would think of this thing that said, what emunah is, what faith is the feeling that a baby has when he knows that the parent is not going to drop him. That's the feeling. And she would look at me with emunah, and she would drift off to sleep in the water with like waves on the beach and stuff. And this was emunah. And she would look at me like this, and that's how she looks at Ori at every moment. The exact same way. It was my job is done, and Ori, your job is beginning, and I want to make a toast to the new couple. It is physically impossible, and you would be arrested probably if you did feel the same way and look at each other the same way for the rest of your lives. But I bless you that you should carry this feeling. You could look at me now. All right. You should carry some of this feeling for the rest of your life. And it's a terrible bracha because it's just going to happen anyway. This is a horrible bracha. But I bless everybody in the room that we should get some of that, and it should rub off in some of our relationships. And I bless all of you with that bracha. Amen.